Today is the 25th of July 2023, and we want to continue our lesson on algebraic expressions. Okay, let me say this upfront before I start the lesson. There are times maybe I would like to say 10x and I'll say 10, or maybe I want to say 2y and I'll say 2x. At that moment, what my pen is pointing to on the script is what I want to say. There are some videos, maybe I'd like to say 5 pounds, and I'll say maybe 5%. Okay, what I'm pointing to is what I am meaning to say. Okay, these are my own notes which I've taken time to write out, read over and over again, okay, before I'm sharing them with you. Okay, so please follow my notes or the script I'm pointing at, because if I say something, for instance 8x minus 2x, okay, and I end up saying 8x minus 2, okay, it's 2x, it won't be 2. Okay, all right, thank you very much, and thanks everyone who's been watching our videos. Okay, if you like it, as I always said, even if it helps one person to achieve, one mom, one dad, one student to achieve a Gcse or a strong Gcse, I'll be very pleased. Okay, but and also if you like it, please share it. Okay, so let's recap from yesterday's lesson. Okay, we said yesterday that simplify expressions by adding or subtracting like terms. Okay, so yesterday we started looking at addition and subtracting of algebra expressions. Okay, so let's look at quickly some examples and then go further. Okay, so today, as I did yesterday, we'll be recapping the adding and subtracting, and then I'll introduce you a little bit to the multiplication. Okay, and then tomorrow we'll do a bit further, and maybe we'll see what we'll do after that. So my first example today is 8x add 2x. Okay, from what we learned yesterday, this is straightforward. Okay, so 8x add 2x will give us 10x. It's like 8 apples add another 2 apples, 10x. Okay, now the second one, same 8x minus 2x. So here 8 apples, take away 2 apples, 6x. Okay, the letters are always variables, so the s can mean anything. The s can be equal to 1, but at the moment we don't know, so we are going to leave our answer as 6x. Okay, C, 8x add 2y. Okay, so here there are no like terms to be grouped together, So our answer will still remain 8x add 2y. But because 2 is a multiple of 8, we can bring 2 out, introduce a bracket. How many 2's do we have in 8? 4, so 4x. How many 2 do we have in 2? 1, so 2 plus y. So if we multiply it back, okay, we can have 2 times 4x is 8x. 2 times y is 2y. But we have an add in the middle, so we bring an add. This is right. This is also right. Next step again, 8x minus 2y. There is nothing to group together, so our answer will be 8x add 2y. But what we did earlier, we can bring the 2 out again, introduce a bracket. We have 4x minus y. So here is add, so we just repeat the add. Here is subtract, so we just repeat the subtract. We are just recapping from yesterday, okay? Now here we have 8x minus 6x. So these are like terms. So we can put them together, 8x minus 6x. 2y add y. So 2y add y. So 8x minus 6x will be 2x. It's like having 8 apples. You take out 6 apples. So you are left with 2 apples. This is maybe 2y or 2 oranges. Add another orange. You get 3y. Remember we said y can be viewed as 1y, but we don't normally write it. So this is our answer, 2x plus 3y. We can't simplify any further, and we can introduce a bracket because 3 and 2 and 3 don't have any common multiples, okay? Now let's look at some more examples, okay? So now today, a add a plus b add b, okay? So 8 add a will be 2a plus b will be 2b, okay? Here also 2 is common, so we can introduce a bracket, 2 out of the bracket, a plus b. So that when we multiply back and we want to remove the bracket, we will end up having 2a add 2b there. 2. Here the variables are x's and y. So straight away we are going to put the x and the y's together. So 3x add 2x. So 3x add 2x. 3x add 2x. Minus y add y. Okay. If you put the variables together, it is easier for you now to see what you want to do. Okay, when you are used to this kind of question, you can move from this step to that step. But at the moment, assume that some of you are still working on the basic level. Okay, so I'm putting in this step. So now we have 3x add 2x, which is 5x, minus y add 5y. which is 4y. We can't still simplify any further, so this will be our answer. Question 3. X add 4x minus 3x add 2y. So 2x, x add 4x will be 5x, minus 3x will be 2x, add y. So now you have 2x and 2y. So now we have 2 outside the bracket, x add y. So that when we multiply, when we want to remove the bracket, we have 2x add 2y. So we can move from this step to this step and back, depending on what we've been asked to do. But at the moment, this is right and this is also right. Now, this one has m, n, and q. So your algebraic expression can use many variables. All you need to do here is to put like terms together. So 3m minus m, 7n add n, 3q minus q. Okay, 3m minus m is 2m, 7n add n is 8n, 3q minus q is 2q. But we have 2m, 8n, 2q. So we can decide to bring in a bracket. 2 is a common factor for each of them. So we have 2. Okay. So in the bracket we'll have m. So that if you multiply 2 by m, we'll get 2m. Plus 4n. 2 times 4n will give us 8n. Plus q. So 2 times q will give us 2q. This answer here is right. 2m plus 8n plus 2q is right. And this one, 2 into bracket m plus q, 4n plus q, bracket close, is also right. Okay. Now, let's introduce some multiplication. So we've seen how we add and subtract. Okay, we put the like terms together. Now, when we are multiplying, it changes a bit. Okay, and when we are dividing, okay, so let's do the multiplication part first, and maybe tomorrow we'll do the division part after we've recapped. Okay, so here 7 times a is 7a. Okay, we don't know what a is, so assuming they say a is 2, then we'll put 2 in place of a. Then we'll have 7 times 2, 14. But at the moment, we don't know what a is. So 7 times a is 7a. That is when you are multiplying. Okay, this is one variable. The next example, 7 times a times b. So a can be anything, b can be anything. So 7 times a is 7a, times b is 7ab. That is when you are multiplying. If you are adding, you can't do that. But if you are multiplying, all you have to do, so assuming A is 1 and B is 2, then you have 7 times 1 times 2. But at the minute, we don't know what A is and what B is. So our answer will become 7AB. So that's the difference between adding and subtract and multiplying. Okay, when you are adding and subtracting, you put like terms together as we've done in yesterday and our recap, okay, and the examples before. But now this is the multiplication part, okay, and you use this a lot, so please don't lose me. Now 7 times A times B times C. So A is a variable, B is a variable, C is a variable. If it were add, we couldn't do anything, okay, but if it's timesing, then we just multiply all. So now our answer will be 7ABC, as I've written here, 7ABC. So if we have 10 variables and we are multiplying, we just write them together, okay. Now 7 times A times A, okay. So now we have 7 times A, as here is 7A, times another A will be 7A squared, okay. A to the power 2, because we have 2A, okay. A times A is A squared, okay. A times A times B is A squared B. Is that okay? Or we can also write it as B A squared. It's the same thing, okay. Now the next example, A times A times B times B times 2. So as we saw, A times A is A to the power 2. B times B is B to the power 2 times 2. So now we have A squared B squared times 2. So to rearrange it, we have 2A squared B squared. Next example, 3A times A times B times 2. Okay, here we are also multiplying. So 3A times A, from what we've been doing so far, 3A times A will be 3A squared times B times 2. Now 3 times 2 is 6. A squared times B. So now we have 6A squared B, or 6B A squared. It's the same thing. Okay, it's like 3 times 2 or 2 times 3. Okay, so 6a squared b, you can also write 6b a squared. Okay, now let's go to the next example. We saw earlier that a times a times a is a cube. So here, s times x times x is s cubed. But I wanted to explain x is the power of 1, another power of 1, another power of 1. So if you add 1, 2, 3, you have x to the power 3. So I said here, note, x 1 add 1 add 1, which will be s to the power 3. So if you have x's multiplying 10 times, your answer will be x to the power 10. As you have x multiplying itself 3 times, the answer is x to the power 3. So straight away, our next example, x times x times x times x will give us x to the power 4, like we did in the powers of 10. So if you have 10 multiplying itself 3 times, then you have 10 to the power 3. Okay, so here we are getting onto something, because if you have 100 of this, you can't continue counting. If you know it's 100, you just write x to the power 100. Okay, so now we've started. So now I'm showing you that if you have it repeating 4 times, it's x to the power 4. So now let's go to the next example. X to the power 2 times x. So this is multiplication. Okay, we've looked at addition, we've looked at subtraction. Now we are looking at multiplication. Tomorrow we'll recap, and then we'll look at multiplication and division. Okay, I will do a little of division. So here we have x to the power 2 times x, which will be s to the power 3. But s to the power 2 add 1, so 2 add 1 is 3. 16, x to the power 2 times x to the power 2. So that is 4 x's. But what it actually means is x 2 add 2 is 4. So when you are multiplying the same variable, as we can see here, all you have to do is to multiply the powers. Okay, so to add the powers, sorry. Okay, so x to the power 2, x to the power 2, so x to the power 4, which is the same as x 2 add 2. Okay, now let's look at this next example. X to the power 2 times y. Now if we were adding, we wouldn't have done anything, but this is times, so we can have x to the power 2 y, or as I showed you earlier, you can bring y, x to the power 2. It's all the same. Okay, now the next one, y times y times x to the power 2. Okay, so y times y is y squared times x to the power 2. So when you multiply, you can put them together, but when you're adding, you cannot. Okay, the reason being, y is a value, x is a value. So if we know the value of y, we can put them in there and simplify, but at the moment we don't know. So our answer here is y to the power 2 s squared, or x to the power 2 y squared. Both are right. Now 19, y times y to the power 4. So straight away, this is y to the power 5. We are putting like terms together. Let's look at the x's. X to the power 2 times x to the power 5. So this will be x to the power 7, because 2 adds 5 is 7. So we have y to the power 5, x to the power 7. So we can write it as y5 x7, or x to the power 7 y to the power 5 is the same. Okay, whether you write x first or y first is the same. Just make sure that you have the powers right. Okay, and when you are writing the powers, don't write x to the power 7 as x7. That is not right. You need to write it this way. Okay, this can mean 7x. This is different from x to the power 7. So don't write that as that. Okay, this can mean this, but this and this cannot mean that. So when you're writing and multiplying, try and make sure that you write them properly. Okay, now let's go to our last question for today. Okay, y to the power 5 times y to the power 10. So as we said, we can multiply the powers. So straight away, this is y to the power 15, which we have here. Now let's look at the x's. X to the power 7 times x to the power 5. 7 add 5 is 12. So we have x to the power 12. So if we remove this x, we can have y to the power 15, x to the power 12. Or we can write x to the power 12 and y to the power 15. Both are the same. As long as the powers are on the right variable, they are the same. Okay, so this is what I wanted to share with you today. As we've seen, if we have x times x is x to the power 2. Here we have x times x times x is x to the power 3. Here x repeats itself 4 times, so we have that. Then we realize that, oh, if we have like this one, this is y to the power 1 and y to the power 4. So we can have both as y to the power 5, and this as x to the power 2 times x to the power 5, so x to the power 7. Okay, and I've shown you both ways to write them. So we will end our lesson here. for today. Okay, this is the how the multiplication part of algebra looks. And tomorrow I'll recap again with you and we'll do a bit of division. Okay. Thank you very much. Your comments are welcome. Okay. And hopefully I'll see you next lesson. Bye.